Climate change. On December 12th, 2017, Bill Walker's Office of the Governor let out a press release titled, Governor Walker appoints members of Climate Action for Alaska Leadership Team. And these references will be provided on the YouTube description. The goal of Walker's administration is, quote, giving us a voice in the global dialogue on climate change. In Anchorage, there is a proposed climate action plan, quote, for the municipality of Anchorage. However, according to realclimate.org, during Roman times, Britannia was growing vineyards, yet during Dark Ages, things got cold and there were no vineyards in Britain at that time, about 1,500 years later. At science-based websites like realclimate.org, their argument is essentially that solar minimum and solar maximums exist, telling us that the sun is the one ultimately responsible for the change in the climate cycles. So this ultimately suggests that there is no such thing as man-made climate change. Bruce, of course, on the state website, they talk about that Governor Walker is giving 15 individuals salaries to study climate change. Is this worth the expense?
No, to my way of thinking, no, it is not. And I'll tell you, I was reading a thing that was Samuel Clemens, better known as Mark Twain, was talking about how he used to pick oranges from the orange trees down in, I believe, the Boot Hill part of Missouri. Well, I used to live in that area when I was a kid, and I guarantee you there are no orange trees there now. It's too chilly. I mean, it's not terribly cold, but it's definitely not semi-tropical anymore. Is there climate change? Yeah, because it's spring of the year. Well, actually, today's the first day of summer. We have climate change, and it's called the changing weather, and that's been going on since the Earth started going around the sun. There's nothing new here. The extremes are different, yes. But, I mean, there was one time there was an ice glaciers that covered most of North America. They're not here anymore. So did man cause that? Did my great-great-great-great-great-grandma using Aquanet on her hair cause that climate change that iced over the entire planet? Well, if you watch 1 million years BC, you might think that because Raquel Welch was wearing a coif that looked like she'd used Aquanet. But I don't really believe that was the case back in those days. Now, before I get too deep into this, anybody, if you're going to write on my Facebook page, keep it clean and keep it intelligent. If you're going to have an intelligent conversation, I'll converse with you. You put dirty words in there. If you threaten me, I'm just going to take it out, okay? If you want to threaten me, come to me and talk to me about it. All right, so that being said, if there is climate change going on right now, I find it very difficult to believe that we have anything really to do with that, all right? They tell us that cattle belching up and cutting the cheese causes most of the world's like methane and that stuff that's in the air. But wouldn't that be true for the dinosaurs and so forth back in the days? Because they were a lot bigger than cattle, and they didn't have men hunting them down and killing them and eating them, I would assume. Not many by any chance or by any means. If you look at the scientific models, the quote models of where the climate would be right now that came out, say, 10, 15 years ago, they're all wrong. Every single one of them is wrong. And all this panic that is being foisted on the American people, and particularly in places like here in Alaska, is based on those models. And the models have all been wrong. The rightest ones among them were pretty wrong. All right. So I remember when I was a kid, they said we're going into an ice age, and then it was the world's going to melt. And I remember when Al Gore was up there talking about climate change back, what is it, 92, when he was running for vice president. And he's saying all the glaciers were going to be gone. Well, they're all still here. He's gone, but the glaciers are still here. They haven't retracted. They haven't receded. They haven't done anything. They're exactly where they were. And by the way, when you see glaciers calving, the people on that side will tell you, well, you can see that the glaciers are receding. They're calving because they're getting thicker. That's what happens. Take a cup, all right, and you set it down, and you put a book on top of it, and then another book, and another book. Eventually, it's going to pop out on the side. That's what happens with these glaciers. That's what causes them to calve. They get so heavy on top that the ice has got to go somewhere, and it breaks off. And it's getting heavier on top because of all the snow that's up there that is eventually squeezed into ice. So all the stuff that they're shoving down the throats of our kids in these schools, and they're just gobbling it up because teacher can't be wrong, folks, think it through. Use a little common sense. Yeah, I kind of ran over there. Go ahead.
Now, as far as those 15 guys and their salaries that Governor Walker appointed to study climate change, based upon what you said, should we be spending money on this issue?
No, I don't think so. First off, it's a phony issue to my way of thinking. If the weather's changing, if the climate is changing, we didn't do it, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. I'm not for polluting, as we've talked about before, but it's because I'm a cheapskate. I'm not a greenie. I recycle everything I can because I'm so cheap. I don't want to throw something away that I can use twice. But when you set 15 people up with these ridiculous salaries, and that's coming out of your pocket, that's coming out of my pocket, and we are sitting here in the most conservative state probably in the union saying we want smaller government, and every single governor we get expands the size of government. And that makes me, hopefully I won't swerve too far from the point here. Now I think I can bring it back around. Saw the other day that Hawaii, which is probably, if not the most liberal, among the top 2 or 3 most liberal states in the union, they have the lowest unemployment in the nation. Here we are in Alaska. Hawaii is half the size of the Matsu. Their population is twice that of the entire state of Alaska. We've got oil, we've got timber, we've got gold, silver, you name it, we've got it up here. And we have the highest unemployment in the nation. And I believe a lot of it comes right back down to this business right here. Because, for instance, up here at Sutton, they got the mines up, they got the coal up there. And the whiners will tell you, oh, we can't do that. We can't, that's the cleanest burning coal in the world. But we can't do that because it might put a little coal dust in the air. Well, folks, we got to get some jobs going around here. But the people like Governor Walker just appointed, and any that follow those into those jobs are going to do everything they can to stop industry out here in this state. And particularly that affects my borough because we're the Appalachia of the Northwest. We've got more coal than Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia ever dreamed of having. But we can't move it because of some environmentalists out there. I am a conservationist. I believe in conserving things so that, for instance, the timber. You look around here and you see the dead timber all over the place. Not so much right here, but you look up here in the Chugach, you see dead trees everywhere because of the beetles. Well, let's remove those dead trees, especially when they are in the process of dying, so that wood could be processed into something so that we can save the trees that are still there. Otherwise, you're going to have a fire and you're going to lose them all. But the people at the top, see, they pretend to care about these things, but what they really care about is the acquisition of power and nothing else. You see these people on the left right now that are jumping up and down about the kids on the border. Here's the thing. I will never look at a liberal and say, that person hates kids. That's silly. Nobody hates kids. But they'll look at our side and say that. The difference is, we actually want to make something good happen for the people, and the people on the left care only about the acquisition of power. We do too. Of course, if we're not in power, we can't get things done. But we're not going to throw around lame insults. Oh, you just want to destroy the environment. Why would we want to do that? Nobody wants to do that. That's silly. But we do want to develop it. Teddy Roosevelt was one of the greatest conservationists ever. And he did some things that I think he went overboard with. But one of the things that he said, and people forget this, is he said there's more to conservation than just keeping things as they are. He said is the wise development of the resources that we have. And to preserve that for future generations, of course. You don't want to strip it all at one time because then my great-grandkids will have nothing. But the wise harvest of timber, coal, bringing the oil down the pipeline, and when that's all gone, Governor Walker, when all the oil is gone, and then bringing out the gas, yeah, that needs to be preserved for ourselves and our posterity. But you can go overboard with that and lock everything up where nothing moves. And again, in probably the most conservative state in the union. So